Next on 9 News, today marks 22 years since terrorists attacked the United States on 9/11. People in Colorado and across the country took time today to honor the thousands of lives lost.
Denver's mayor has a new idea to try and eliminate traffic deaths in the city. He's not the first to suggest putting an end to Right on Red.
And the Broncos season did not get off to the start the fans were hoping for. Some old habits coming back to bite them. 4 o'clock at 9 News starts now. Good afternoon. As we hit 4 o'clock today, many Americans are reflecting. That's because today, of course, marks 22 years since the terror attacks of 9/11, 2001. Nearly 3,000 people were killed in New York, Virginia, and Pennsylvania on that fateful day.
And today, Americans took time to remember and honor those who lost their lives. Services were held at the September 11th Memorial in New York City, the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia, and the Flight 93 Memorial in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. They read the names of each victim at the services and held moments of silence. Vice President Kamala Harris attended the service in New York. President Biden spoke at a military base in Alaska as he returns from an overseas trip to India.
And here in Colorado, many paid tribute in many ways, some by climbing the stairs at Red Rocks. Participants climbing the equivalent of the 110 stories of the World Trade Center, 9 laps around the amphitheater. Many firefighters do it in full gear with oxygen tanks, just as the New York City firefighters had to do that day. Last year, more than 2,000 people joined in. Now in its 15th year, younger generations are getting more involved.
One of my favorite things is seeing the kids that are coming. My kids, my son wasn't even born. My daughter was, I think, 1 our first year that we came here, and now they're both climbing. I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old. And seeing kids that their parents are firefighters. I'm a second-generation firefighter as well. So seeing those kids that were kids when they started coming here, and now that they're getting into the fire service and carrying that legacy and honoring the people that we lost that tragic day is pretty awesome.
The participants also pay a registration fee, and that goes towards the FDNY Counseling Services Unit, as well as the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. Last year's walk raised about $106,000.
Aurora police say they're investigating a deadly crash that killed a pedestrian last night. It happened at the intersection of Peoria Street and East Montview Boulevard. Police responded a little after 10:15. They say a 21-year-old driver was heading south on Peoria in a Dodge Ram when he hit a man who was crossing the intersection. The pedestrian died. APD says the driver stayed on the scene. Police do not believe the driver was speeding or under the influence.
Certainly feeling the cool air, but it's beginning to look a lot like winter, at least up in the mountains. The first snow of the season falling along the Front Range. These pictures from Rocky Mountain National Park showing the ground covered in white. And Trail Ridge Road actually had to be closed for a couple of hours this morning due to the snow and icy road conditions. A reminder, of course, that conditions change pretty quickly when it comes to the elevation.
Here in Denver, a different story. We're starting to see the sunshine. It was a gloomy start to our Monday, but this is outside the studios right here at Spear and Logan. Kathy, it's good to see the sun now. It's just hard to get up on a Monday.
I know. What's that song, Rainy Days and Mondays?
Yes.
There's a song about that.
Oh.
I know, and this is unusual for September. Typically, we'll see conditions like this in October, but typically September, you can almost count on blue sky days, plenty of sunshine, temperatures in the 70s. It's just, in my opinion, probably the best month out of the year. So this is a little bit weird, and we're embarking upon an unsettled period of weather as we move through the rest of this week. So we're saying goodbye to the showers, the cloud cover, and the cool weather that kind of hung in for most of the day today. As Kim mentioned, we're seeing some sunshine out there in Denver and Fort Collins. Showers are starting to move to the south after a light dusting of snow over some of the higher peaks, and temperatures today in the 60s. Yes, I don't even know if we made it to 60 yesterday, and the average high is 82 this time of year. Humidity values are really high. We're not seeing a lot of convective activity, low stratus clouds with these winds out of the east, and so that could mean some areas of fog and reduced visibility for some areas again tonight. You can tell that drier air is starting to work in from the northwest as those showers progress toward the south, and we're watching them them kind of come off the foothills, dropping some heavy rain in areas like Pueblo. 2 inches of rain there, heavy rain in and around that city. And in Denver now, we've got dry air just as we get that evening drive underway. Futurecasts will show diminishing showers and clearing skies and light winds. And tomorrow we have a warming and drying trend that will carry us into Tuesday and Wednesday ahead of the next storm. And yep, there's more rain coming this week. So temperatures now in the 60s will stay there through 9 o'clock tonight. And we have that unsettled weather pattern, as I mentioned. I'm going to talk more about that. And then our next chance for rain coming up in just a few more days. So that may mean, Kim and Tom, a little more snow way up high.
All right, Kathy, thanks. Denver, of course, is continuing to try to eliminate traffic deaths. Now, the committee that's advised the new mayor, Mike Johnston, on the best ways to do so came up with an interesting suggestion to ban right turns on red. Now, that's a move that several other cities around the country have already made as they try to lower the number of crashes with people outside of cars. 9 News reporter Steve Steger now taking a look at the history of right on red and the push to change the law.
Until the 1970s, basically right turns on red were banned everywhere.
It was the oil crisis of the 1970s when gas shortages scared drivers that a driving habit we all know pretty well these days became law. Right turns on red.
Somebody got the idea that it could help save on gas.
The idea at the time was that if you allow cars to go right turn on red, they'd be less idling, they can save gas and maybe save time.
The federal government incentivized states to change the law, even though the data showed the savings were small and the danger was higher.
There's not a lot of evidence that it ever actually saved on gasoline consumption, but there's a lot of evidence that it did increase crashes with bicyclists and pedestrians.
Jill Locantori leads the Denver Streets Partnership Advocacy Group.
One of the more famous studies is from, I think, the early 80s, and something like between 40 and 100% more pedestrian crashes and between 70 and 80% more bike crashes.
Wes Marshall is a traffic engineer and professor at CU Denver. Both talked to us about a change suggested by a transition committee to Denver Mayor Mike Johnston, that the city of Denver should look at banning right turns on red, especially in areas where people on bikes and people walking get hit a lot.
The drivers are looking to the left for oncoming vehicles and looking for a gap in traffic, and they're not looking to the right to see potential bicyclists or pedestrians who are coming into the crosswalk. And they have an incentive to creep into the crosswalk and actually block access for anybody who's trying to cross the street.
Locantori was on that committee.
This definitely came up as a quick and easy action that the new mayor could take immediately to make our streets safer.
Marshall says banning rights on red would slow traffic flow marginally, but not enough to make a noticeable difference.
If we're prioritizing saving a few seconds over saving lives, I think we're misprioritizing things.
Washington, D.C., Seattle, and Ann Arbor's, their city leaders have already committed to making this change. There isn't much data that on the impacts in those cities yet. It would take a much more robust educational campaign, by the way, to try to make this work, because making a right turn on red is really the norm, and it's really ingrained in a lot of our minds. I remember during my driver's test, I almost got marked down because I tried to do it on a no turn on red sign. You know, you kind of pull up and you're ready to go.
Oh, but now a lot of people talk about you as being a really good driver now. I mean, you've come
yeah.
a long way.
Oh, I can't believe I got my license. Somehow I did it. But
So,
yeah.
so I remember when all this happened during the gas crisis, and I get the feeling the idea was to save fuel and maybe also deal with our air pollution, things like that. But mostly it seems to be like a cultural thing that people are in a hurry. I don't want to sit here and wait at a red light when I could be turning.
That's why you talk to a traffic engineer like Wes Marshall. He equates it to like raising or lowering the speed limits in an area. That really, in your normal daily commute, will not make much of a difference. He says it's so marginal in this, a lot of people wouldn't even notice it.
All right, Steve, thanks.
They're moving on up thanks to the big win on Saturday. The Buffs are in this week's top 25 poll. They climbed 4 spots to number 18. This Saturday, ESPN's College Game Day and Fox's Big Noon Kickoff will both come to Boulder for the Rocky Mountain Showdown against CSU. If the Buffs can win that game, it could set up a top 15 matchup the following week against Oregon, currently ranked number 13. That game will be nationally televised on ABC at 1:30.
Yeah, but not all Colorado football teams were able to pull off wins this weekend. Many of you may have heard that the Broncos lost Game 1 of the Sean Payton era. It was just like Game 1 of the Nathaniel Hackett era, with the Broncos losing the season opener 17-16. Russell Wilson was in fact sharp, but the team fell into some old habits, making just enough mistakes to lose a one-score game, and once again failing to put up more than 16 points. And to make matters worse, the kicking game left at least 4 points on the table. The new place kicker Will Lutz missed a field goal and an extra point. After the game yesterday, Sean Payton still backing the guy that he brought in to kick from New Orleans.
I was surprised a little bit, his first kick. He'll bounce back. He's had a good 2 weeks with us, hadn't had any issues, and we'll work to get that cleaned up.
Well, of course, people would like him to get that cleaned up. The Broncos have another home game coming up this week with the Washington Commanders.
Yeah. Okay. Well, home is better, usually.
Well, it'll be alumni weekend, so you're going to see a lot of the old Bronco
Okay.
familiar faces. They're going to come out to beautiful weather, see a great football game, check out the Commanders, and guys like Jason Elam and Rich Carlos and some of the guys who made a few kicks be here as well.
Remember those guys?
Yeah, they were pretty good. Stuck around a little while.
Yeah, they did.
Well.
Okay. Well, they got a week to regroup.
Yeah, they're going to need
Week
it.
to
We'll
get
see
it
what happens.
together.